Hey there, this is Red from Topic Change, doing a slightly different video than normal. I know I usually do like analysis videos or long form kind of podcast style stuff, but I just kind of wanted to do a more loose, rambling kind of video. I just saw the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, I saw it on opening night, and I'm a pretty big fan of the franchise. The games are pretty fun. I just figured I'd give it a try, see if I had something interesting to say. So, there's not going to be a lot of editing to this, so, if you want to just leave this on in the background, you can feel free to go ahead and do that while you're doing some chore or another. I'm going to do a brief segment talking non-spoiler, just if you want to hear if you should see the movie or not, and then I will move into spoiler talk for the rest of the review. So, first impressions, kind of quick notes. Don't expect anything super scary or, like a big gore fest. This is not. I think the ads are a little bit misleading in this regard. You kind of expect it to be like exactly like the games, where it's like, oh, Freddy's coming down the corridor. What are you gonna do? It's a lot less terrifying than I think you would expect from a Freddy movie. And I think that actually lends to the film in a weird way. You wouldn't expect someone to say that for a horror film, but I think the fact that it isn't super scary probably was for the best. Not that the scary parts are bad, it's just that the lack of jump scare, it's not super jump scare heavy. The ones that they do have, actually did get startled a couple times. They actually were pretty effective, which I think, again, it does lend credit to those because they're used sparingly. As for the film itself, rather than like the kind of genre, I would say it's plot wise, it's if you're not a fan of the games, it might be a little hard to follow. I consider myself pretty ingrained in the lore. I'm not like the super fan who knows everything, but I get the broad strokes. I followed the theories when they were coming out. This is one of those movies where the plot is pretty simple on the surface level, but there's a lot of little bits and bobs that kind of lead, fans and theorists that might go like, oh, what is that? Is it a hint to the next movie or something like that? Like, there's a lot of plot elements that are a little different from the games that I think a lot of people will enjoy and a lot of people won't enjoy. I would say if you like the movie-going experience, this movie definitely benefits from having a packed crowd. If you're like a big fan of FNAF, I would definitely see it in theaters. Everybody was oohing and eyeing. Like, there was a lot of people who were like screaming when a certain thing happened or laughing when a joke. It was very high energy. The kind of stuff that you don't really see in theaters anymore, which is like, people freaking out when like a crazy thing happens or a shared laugh or a really big clap. Like, that kind of thing doesn't really happen anymore, at least for me, in movie theaters. And I feel like this movie really benefits from that. If you like that kind of high energy, where you don't mind if you miss a couple of lines of dialogue, I would definitely see it in the theater and try to pick a packed showing. It really amps up the fun, I think, of seeing the movie. If you're not into that kind of thing, I would definitely recommend seeing it at home. That's already on streaming services. It's on Peacock, I believe. Some kind of brand deal, I assume. I would definitely recommend doing that if you're a little bit more, I guess, introverted, if you don't really like the crowd situation. As for the film itself, I would say, if you're not a fan, I would temper your expectations a little bit, but for the fans, I think this movie will be well appreciated. So that's kind of the end of the non-spoiler stuff. I know it was a little bit vague, but a lot of the stuff I want to talk about is very, plot heavy, I think. So I'm going to move into that now. If you're not interested in hearing that, I would say probably don't listen anymore. So I'm not going to do like beat for beat really stuff that's in the film. I'm just gonna kind of talk about what I have written down here. I wrote notes as I was watching the film, and just kind of whatever comes to mind, I'm gonna speak my mind on. So I would say, first of all, I think one of the things that is very much a standout for me in this film was the main character, Mike. He's played by Josh Hutcherson of Hunger Games fame, and I think he's in Bridge to Terabithia. Amazing actor. I think he did fantastic in this film. I think Mike is very well written. I find him believably frustrated in a situation. He's a brother being a guardian for a sister. He's all alone in that regard. His parents have passed away in some form or another. It's a little vague. It's clear that he has a lot of guilt over what happened to his younger brother. which obviously you're in spoiler territory, but his brother gets kidnapped. I believe, in my opinion, those who know what's the story, I feel like probably the little brother is the puppet, but we're not talking about theories, we're just talking about the film. Josh Hutcherson was probably a fantastic choice for main character here, and his kind of antagonist, his rival, so to speak, Springtrap, aka William Afton, aka Matthew Lillard, was a fantastic opposite to him. The only problem being that I feel like he was pretty underutilized. The scenes wherein he gets to kind of shred his stuff and show off his acting, amazing, fantastic. He's never been a bad actor. Stu Macher, a legendary villain in horror media, at least in my opinion. And the bits we do get to see of him, especially near the end, where he's in the costume and he's laughing maniacally, and he's got the knife. He even does like he wipes his hand on the knife like in Scream. It's pretty cool, and I don't know if that was intentional or like something that he suggested to the crew or they suggested to him. I thought it was cool either way, but I just wish we got more of him. I know, like I said in the non-spoiler section, it's not a super horror-centric film. There's a lot of time not spent at Freddy's, which I thought was pretty interesting, and I actually liked that. But it is to the detriment of characters such as Springtrap, where he doesn't really get to show up until the final battle, per se. I think it undercuts his appearance a little bit, because you don't really get to spend a lot of time learning about him. He's not like a central character or a mysterious figure. He shows up at the beginning of the film, and I knew Matthew Lillard was the villain because of interviews and stuff, but even not knowing that, let's just pretend that I didn't know that. And the acting in the scene where he gives Mike the job, it's very clear that there's something sinister in mind, and I think that's a good thing. I think it if we had more scenes with him in the interim, I think it would have really added to the film. Unfortunately, I think it was a little underdone, that particular element of the plot. Something that was instead, in some people's opinion, probably overdone was Vanessa. I thought she was an interesting character to add to the kind of plot line. She's a newer character in the video games, and they kind of readjusted her and brought her back into the kind of like FNAF 1, 2, 3 era. I thought she was pretty... I liked her a lot, but she has very weird kind of stilted dialogue at times, strange interactions, but I think it lends to the character because she's this kind of like a devotee to William Afton for a little while, even though it's not known to you. But I do think, much like with Springtrap, I think that kind of element was, it could have been given a little more time to cook, if that makes sense. Like her switching up at the end and taking Mike's side, I guess, rather. I think it was kind of inevitable and a little bit obvious, but I don't think there was enough time of her on screen being on William Afton's side. I think that's a little bit of a disappointment. But either way, I still liked her character. I think she was one of the better characters in the film, even though there's not that many, I guess. But I enjoyed her. I enjoyed the kind of awkward, clearly almost dreamy way she talks about Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Like she asks Mike to dance when the animatronics are doing their show. It's almost like this, she's obsessed with the characters. And I thought that was really interesting. I just wish they would have given a little more. I don't know if they could have added more, or maybe given a little bit more time to let that kind of plotline grow. But I mean, she's a pretty central character, so I don't know how much more they could have really added in the first place. Another really important character in the film is the little girl Abby. From the trailers, I was terrified that she was going to be one of those modern era kids who are just sassy teens but aged down. I was very glad to be proven wrong. She's a very well acted character. I genuinely was concerned for her safety. I really thought they were going to kill this kid in this film. I was like, damn. Because the reason I thought that was because of the Golden Freddy. For those who know Golden Freddy, there's two souls inside the one animatronic, and there's only one eye lit up when Golden Freddy shows up. So I thought, oh man, they're going to kill this kid, and she's going to be in the other eye. But obviously that makes no sense for anyone who hasn't seen the movie. If you're watching this review and you haven't seen the film, that makes no sense what I just said. But if those who know, that makes sense. I thought she was written pretty well. A lot of the stuff, there was something that concerned me was there's a sequence in the film where Abby befriends the animatronics because they're trying to lure her in and like make her a part of the crew. Like they want to kill her and like stuff her in a suit or whatever. But in the early stages of their meetings, they're just kind of playing with her and whatever. I really thought like we were gonna get like early 2000s like, oh, gang, with the power of friendship we could be Springtrap, but that doesn't happen, thankfully. Instead we get some pretty good stuff with the animatronics. They are very clearly evil ghost robots like in the games. They have some throwaway characters who just like show up to the pizzeria to be killed while Mike is away. That is something that I had a problem with when I watched the film. There's an aunt character, Mike's aunt. I don't even remember her name. She was so forgettable as a character, but she wants to take custody of Abby, so she hires like one of his neighbors or something like that, and they go to Freddy Fazbear's to trash the place, so he'll get fired. And then all the animatronics murder all 5 of them. I thought those were some really good scenes. The animatronics are very well animated. I feel they're complete one-to-ones to the game, which is exactly what you want in a movie made for fans, like a video game movie. You want it to look like the animatronics from the game, and they nailed it. The only thing I didn't like about the animatronics was I feel like Chica, the cupcake was used way too much. There was a lot of kills with the cup. I think it does like 4 or 5 kills, or like it injures or threatens the life of a lot of characters more than Bonnie or Chica themselves. Conversely, I think Foxy was used to an excellent degree. I think he does his little like ba-da-dum-dum-dum, that little song he does in the first game. He used that a lot as like his kind of like calling card as he's approaching you. And I think the threat of him from the first game is translated incredibly well to film. He was the only animatronic that was like scary. I was like terrified whenever he was on screen, not literally, but like I was like, oh damn, he's gonna kill somebody, and it was cool. While we're on the subject of the ant character, who I can't remember the name of, there's it also kind of leads into, there's a couple of YouTuber cameos. Matt Pat is in the film for a single scene. It's a little bit like kind of cheesy, but like it's not done in. He literally says, "I have a theory." He's like a waiter who's trying to sell them. He's like, "Would you guys like to order some food?" Whatever. I thought it was like, it's a quick one little like 1-2 punch. He comes in, they shoot him off, and then he's gone. And I thought it was great. Corey Kenshin is also in the film. He's a taxi driver. I think he was in one of the trailers, and I think his inclusion was also pretty. It was just a quick and easy 1-2 punch, and then he's out of there. And I think that's the way that you do those kind of cameos. They're just side characters. You don't need to make them an entire like plot relevant guy. Markiplier, however, is not in the film. He confirmed that before the film came out, and they'll probably make him like a main character or something, or like a detective or somebody who's like investigating finances for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in the second film. They're gonna give him some kind of role, I'm sure of it. But for people who were like dying to see Markiplier in this film, he is not in it. If that's like a deal breaker for you, sorry about that, dude, but he's not in the film. As far as the plot goes, I would say it's a little bit, there are times where it's a bit hard to follow if you're not like in the know, if that makes sense. Like, even though the plot of the film does not borrow directly from any of the games, it's pretty clearly its own story. But even with that said, there are a couple of plot elements where it's like, okay, like there's a scene where Vanessa reveals that the killer she says, "It's William Afton, my father," or whatever. It's like, okay, so it's cool that the friend policewoman character, she's the daughter of the villain. That's like, oh, it's a cool twist. But like, if you're not a fan, the name William Afton doesn't mean anything in the film. Like, you wouldn't even know that he's the owner of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza if you hadn't played the games. Like, it's not stated anywhere in the movie. It's not implied in the background. It's just, if you know the name William Afton because of osmosis, or you've played the games, you'll be like, whoa, it's William Afton. Otherwise, oh, so the guy from the beginning of the movie is the villain. Like, that's kind of, I could see it coming out of left field for people if you didn't watch any of the trailers, or you don't know anything about the series. Me personally, I didn't see anything wrong with it. I thought it was fine. I was actually pretty like, oh no, because there's like a scene where she like shows him a picture and it's like it's a very stuffed full scene. It's like 4 or 5 reveals on top of each other. It's, you know, you find out William Afton is the killer. It's also the same person who kidnapped Mike's brother, and it's also Vanessa's dad, and it's also the guy who's in the yellow bunny costume that like the ghost kids had been talking to him about. So it's like a quadruple whammy, and it's like if you're not really paying attention or you missed a couple of plot points, you might just be like, why is this relevant? Why is everyone else in the theater oohing and awing? For me, I literally grabbed my friend's arm and I was like, no, it's him, like as if it was like a Thanos level event or something. So for me, I was pretty into it when I was in the film. If that lends any credence or detracts from anything I'm saying, I suppose that that's the breaks. But I did mention the ghost kids a minute ago. There is a subplot involving them. Well, I guess it's pretty central actually. Mike has these pretty vivid dreams that he takes sleeping pills to kind of like induce lucid dreaming. He's trying to remember like the day of his brother's kidnapping and like trying to find anything he can in his memory to like bring his brother back or whatever. And the ghost kids keep like intervening in that. I thought that was pretty interesting. It takes up a lot of the runtime, but like in a good way, where it's like they're developing this kind of obsession that Mike has, and I thought it's another layer of interest for Mike, which I mentioned a little bit ago. I just thought it was a cool bit of extra like not padding, but like sowing the seeds of like what kind of stuff he's been through before the movie starts. The one thing I did not like about the ghost kids was there's this one scene where Josh Hutcherson is like chasing the ghost of Foxy or whatever, and he gets he corners him, and then the Foxy kid like slashes him, and he turns to the camera with like black eyes, and there's like ooze coming out of his eyes, and he like jump scare screams at the camera, and then Mike wakes up, and it's like it was pretty dumb. But that's kind of like the only part that I thought was like cringe, yeah, sure. Like the only part that kind of took me out of the movie was that. There's a couple stilted like line deliveries that are a little stilted. Like it's clearly like Josh Hutcherson just had a bad line read and they just used that cut for the movie for some reason. Or like there's a part where Vanessa's like, if you bring Abby back to the pizzeria, I'll shoot you. It's like that's just not something a police officer would say. At least not to me. I think pretty much everybody in the theater laughed out loud from that, and it's just funny because I thought I was the only one who thought it was weird, and then everybody was like, what? So, you know, it's a little weird. There's a couple of little lines like that, like when Springtrap the spring lock scene happens. He is killed in this movie, and right before he dies, he says, I always come back, which is like, why did you say that? It's clearly like something for the fans, where it's like he said the thing. I think they should have kept that out of the film. Personally, I think it would have been way cooler if he just dies silently. But I thought that was like that is one of the better scenes though, is Springtrap dying, because I think whatever they did to have him like seizing up and shuddering as he's being stabbed, either like whoever was acting in there or like they just made an animatronic shake inside the suit, I thought it was amazing. It very much imitated like what I imagined, like the teaser trailers for FNAF 3. It was like 1-to-1 almost. It was really cool. But yeah, so this is kind of just all over the place, but it's a good show. It's really good. And I would say if you're not a fan, this is like probably your standard horror movie, and it's nothing groundbreaking, I don't think. Jim Henson's company that designed the animatronics, I think, really knocked it out of the park. And if you're into that kind of stuff, I think this will be like a 6 or 7 out of 10 for you. If you're just looking for a standard horror film and you were kind of, let's say, tricked. I wouldn't say tricked, but like if you were expecting like a gore fest or like scares, like 10 scares a minute, you're not gonna get that here, and it might knock it down to like a 5 or a 4 out of 10 for you. For fans of the series, I would easily say this is a 7 or 8 out of 10 baseline. Me personally, I would probably put it at an 8, but that's because I love the series, so I am a little biased, I can't lie. I could see someone saying this is a 10, but for me, there's a couple bits and bobs here that really bring the movie back down, at least for me. It's just something about it is just there's a couple bits missing. I feel like this could really have used an extra 20 minutes to the runtime. I know some critics were saying like this could have been an hour long, and I think it's just, you know, I think you were looking at people who say that, they're looking at the movie wrong. I think, not to discredit anybody who like didn't like the movie. If you didn't like the movie, I get it. I had problems with it too, but I think it's a solid film. It's directed pretty well. I think the editing is pretty snappy and solid. The writing has its issues at times. Like one of my friends who I went to see the film with, he did not realize that Abby and Mike were siblings until this, like, maybe like an hour into the film or something like that, which is a little bit of an issue. The dynamic's pretty much the same if you assume they're father and daughter, but I mean, it's still like, you know, you're losing some of the context there. So if you get like, if you miss a plot beat, like I said, it can be confusing. But let me get back to wrapping up the video here. This is, you know, it's a good film. I would say it's not something you're gonna be like, oh, it's Halloween, time to rewatch the Freddy movie. If you're not a super fan, it's probably not gonna wow you, but it's not a bad film. I would personally give it a 7 or an 8, depending on like how I'm feeling. And I'm excited for the next one. There's definitely gonna be a sequel. Even there was no teaser. It wasn't like a after credits type situation. But I think all in all, it's a lot of people were saying this, and I'm going back into the video. A lot of people were saying that it's like just another bad video game film. I disagree. I think this was a pretty faithful adaptation that took its own direction at the same time, which I think is interesting. And I think it's not going to win any awards or anything, I know that, but it definitely should be praised for the fact that it's a horror film that doesn't just steep itself in the horror. It goes other places. You're not stuck in Freddy's the entire movie. You're going other places. You're exploring plot points outside of the realm of the titular area. And I think that it was for the benefit of the movie, like I said at the beginning. So to stop myself from talking for another half hour, because I could easily talk for like another hour and a half about this movie, because give me a subject and I'll talk about it. I would say for sure give it a watch at home, if nothing else. You know, it's like what, $7 for a Peacock subscription. Just subscribe, get your month, watch the show, watch a couple other things, and then unsubscribe. It's a good film, and I would definitely recommend at least giving it a try. If you don't like it, then oh well. Anyways, I know this is not like my usual kind of content that I do, but I just wanted to get my thoughts out. I just saw the film, and I figured I might as well talk about it, and because I wanted to talk about it, I might as well put it on the channel. So hopefully more structured content will be coming soon. This is just something I felt like I needed to say. So until next time, this is Red from Topic Change, signing off.